Hi, everybody. Welcome, welcome. My name is Mara Palma. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a performing and teaching artist. I'm currently an actor in Book It Repertory Theater's production of The Bonesetter's Daughter by Amy Tan and adapted by Desdemona Chang and directed by Rosa Joshi. I play Mother, the Bonesetter, Teacher Pan, and I am understudying LuLing. And I'm joined with a guest today.
Hi, my name is Mylene Eduvala. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I own a private practice in San Diego, where I am a psychotherapist working with adults who suffer from anxiety, depression, and trauma. I'm also an advocate for the AAPI mental health community, where I'm hoping that we could just continue to break the stigma in that community.
Yes, absolutely. And actually, that's how we connected, Mylene. We connected during AANHPI, which is Asian American, Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander Month. It
Yep.
was really just a Facebook post, actually, wasn't it?
Very randomly, I think we were
Yeah,
both answering some other post, but ran into each other on that thing. So that was really kind of
exactly.
very neat that we did that.
And what's funny is I remember you were commenting on a post I had made about the Bonesetter's Daughter. I was so excited. I was working on the show. I posted about it on my social media because it's kind of a dream project of mine. And you have a personal connection to the Bonesetter's Daughter, right?
I do. I do. I read the book maybe back in college, and was really going through a rough time. My dad had just kind of left the family, and it really helped me through that moment, where I needed to connect a lot more with my mother. And it
Mm,
was it was a trying time for all of us, but it took me reading that book to understand that there was a story, and my mother had that story, and it was kind of just the unplucking of it, which, oh, I was really excited when I saw that post that you were doing this play. I'm excited for you. The story itself is a beautiful story. And so I am really excited that it's actually getting its place in time now.
yeah, I
Yeah.
completely agree. I mean, I have a very strong relationship with my mother, and recently have been starting to ask more questions. Where did you
Yeah.
come from? How did you deal with this? And so this play is coming at a time that's perfectly aligned with what's happening in my life, and I'm so glad that um, folks like you, and I know there's a lot in our community, in Book It's community, who really love this book, who really love Amy
Yeah.
Tan.
Oh,
Um,
yeah. She's
I'm so
wonderful.
Jinx, I love
Yeah.
it. And folks who are coming to this video, we're hoping that our conversation today can bridge some of the gaps in terms of coming to the theater, while
Mhm.
also knowing that uh, taking good mental health and well-being, taking good care of yourself when you see a show such as The Bonesetter's Daughter. Now, if you don't know anything about The Bonesetter's Daughter, let me tell you a little bit, because our conversation today is really grounded in folks experiencing this show. So The Bonesetter's Daughter delves into the heart of family, taking a look at the often complicated relationship between mothers and daughters. And when the world is full of chaos and violence, love is often left unsaid and unshown. But by grappling with the ghosts of our past, be it family, country, or self, we can learn to accept and appreciate the truth that binds the broken places. We can learn to be whole.
But that's so beautifully.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And we see a variety of mothers and daughters in this play. Some of the characters you'll encounter in this piece include Ruth and LuLing, LuLing and Precious Auntie. There's obviously many, many more. As you may have heard, I play multiple characters, and we have an ensemble of 8 who play multiple characters as well. And one thing, when people come to this show, we have a content warning. And for a little bit of context, folks who maybe go to the theater, maybe who don't go to the theater, It's a practice we do so that folks coming to a show know some of the themes that may come up and that could potentially be triggering for them. And this content warning is posted, but I will also just mention it now. Our content warnings include addiction, dated language, dementia, domestic violence, self-harm, suicidal ideation and suicide, child abuse, child marriage, pedophilia, murder, pre-recorded sounds of gunshots and more, and people carrying and pointing prop guns. Now, knowing all this, Mylene, what could I being a potential audience member, when you're walking to that theater or that space, really, what can I do knowing that some of those topics might be triggering for me?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when we haven't seen this acted out in theater, it could be really triggering to know that these themes are coming up. So, one of the things that I like to do, especially before a show, is knowing that I can make space to ground myself and to center myself. So, it really is about allowing your feelings to happen in the moment, but also being mindful that what you're watching is actually LuLing's story and it's Ruth's story. And knowing that you can watch this happen and you have space to process it afterwards. So, kind of securing yourself in that feeling. And what it looks like for me is, when I'm feeling that feeling, when I'm seeing that emotion happen on the stage and in myself, I can kind of just put my hands on my heart,
Mhm.
really just sort of feel it, experience it. Don't don't shut it away. Don't bring it down. Just kind of feel it in that moment. And that's a good way of grounding and centering yourself while you're watching it.
Oh, that's beautiful, because that's something I could do in my seat. Don't have to
Hmm.
go anywhere. And actually, I love what you've just shown us, Mylene, because when I work with young people, we call this a butterfly hug. So
I love
you've got,
that.
it looks like a
Yeah.
butterfly in your chest. And then we also do, we kind of flutter those butterfly wings.
Oh, that's perfect. That's actually called tapping in our therapy world. And
Oh,
yeah, so for people who have maybe gone through a trauma, sometimes they experience trauma responses because they're triggered in an environment. And once they do the tapping, that actually you promotes a safe space for them. Yeah, so I would love to talk about that more with you one day. But yeah, how funny. We call that tapping.
butterfly hugs.
You didn't even know you were centering yourself and grounding yourself this whole time.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I love when that happens.
That's cool.
Now, when it comes to the flow of a show, right? So you've given us a great tool a little bit before and possibly during. Uh, our show has an intermission, which comes in between first part and the second part. And I was curious, during that, say, we have a 15-minute intermission in our show. What if I'm feeling a little too much of something's coming up in my body, maybe my breath? Is there anything I can do during that short intermission?
It's so great that the Bonesetter's Daughter has that space as an intermission, but it can also be used as a mini processing time for people. So, I know that people usually go to theater shows with their family and their friends or coworkers, and it might really be a good time to ask questions like, hey, how's everybody feeling after that first act? How'd that hit you? Here's how it hit me. And really kind of using that time not only to rush to the bathroom, but maybe to just have a little bit of a discussion so that you don't hold in all those feelings that you've been feeling during the first act.
Ooh, I love that. And I will say right now, this may be a spoiler moment. So if you haven't seen the show, please maybe skip over the next few minutes. But on that topic, Mylene, there's a moment near the end of Act One, the first part of our show, where one of my characters, Mother, takes out her repressed emotions on Precious Auntie, another character, on her body. And this is coming off of precious auntie having just taken her own life. So it's a really, really heavy moment for myself as actor and for the audience to experience. And I know something that has helped me in terms of my mental health and well-being, like during our rehearsals and even during our performances, having people to connect with and process. My fellow castmates are incredible. That helps me to remember that my character is separate from me, the actor, connecting and just saying, hey, tonight felt maybe this, or, ooh, that was a rough moment. It's so helpful to have my castmates and even honestly friends who see the show. I don't see them during
Absolutely.
intermission, but having someone to just mini process is so, so wonderful.
Absolutely. I think that, using that intermission time to just talk about what you just witnessed, it's great to get those feelings out, which I'm such an advocate for. And, when you hear the intermission bell calling you back to your seat, you might want to just say to your friends that you've gone with, hey, let's circle back. Let's come back to this and process it a little bit more, maybe after the show.
Yeah, especially if 15 minutes isn't enough time, or sometimes
Right.
10 for
Right.
repetition. Yeah. And just
Yeah.
naming that we're going to need to come back to this.
Exactly. Exactly. Putting a pin in it, right? Just so you can revisit it later.
I love that. And, speaking of, as you sit down, you experience act two or the second half of that show. And then after the show, right? Curtain call, which is a fancy way of saying when the actors come on stage to bow and the show is
Mhm.
over. What are some ways I, as audience member, might be able to diffuse myself from the show? And Mylene, you gave me that term. So I was wondering if you could say a little bit more about what it might mean to diffuse yourself from a show.
Yeah, absolutely. So, The Bonesetter's Daughter, I think it's about 2 hours long, right? A little bit more than that.
Yeah.
And you just spent these last 2 hours really engrossing yourself in the story of daughters and mothers and their triumphs and their troubles.
Yeah.
And sometimes we get so into a story that we're almost sometimes fusing ourselves within that story. We're recalling moments where maybe we had a trauma similar to what Ruth is experiencing or LuLing is experiencing, or maybe even that communication barrier that they've had with their own mothers. We can reflect on that for ourselves too, where we're sort of putting ourselves into that story. So the act of diffusing is really just about like, okay, I'm observing my feelings in this moment. I'm observing myself. But again, LuLing's story, Ruth's story. So after the show has ended, it really is about like, how can I get myself out of that story now that it's over?
Yes.
And a lot of times for me, like, I love theater. I'm so passionate about it. I don't even think I talked about this yet, but it really is such a passion of mine that for me, I know that meeting actors or even meeting the production team, that's a way for me to get more grounded in reality, which is part of that diffusion. It's me knowing that these are just actors that were up there. They weren't hurting, they weren't traumatized. They went through something. They told me a story that hit me really hard, in my own emotions. But I want to ground myself back in reality. And that could just be, you know, going up to them and saying, thank you so much for sharing this and for letting me feel the feelings that I'm feeling. And that is being grounded in reality. I felt this and you did that for me. So thank you so much.
Oh.
Um, yeah. And then maybe even to go home and identify those feelings that came up with you. I mean, that train ride home, or, just maybe riding in the car, going to dinner after the show, that might be a really great time to process that too.
Yeah. One of the things that our playwright Desdemona Chang spoke about in an interview was, if this play could prompt an audience member to go home and call their mom or daughter or grandmother, that would be an an accomplishment.
Oh, it totally would. I feel
Yeah.
like after reading the book, that was exactly what it made me do. You know, I really did wanna know my mom's story, and so
Yes.
that's why I think I have, like, such a personal connection to this book. I loved it,
Yes.
and I think a
Yes.
lot of other people will too, whether, like, they read it and then they go watch your play, seeing it in
Yeah.
person, I'm sure they will connect some way like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Because that is our hope, as actors. And I in teaching my students, we talk about how theater allows the audiences to see themselves in the shoes of a character, to walk a mile with
Mhm,
us, and to understand that person's motivations and wants and secrets and joys. So it
mhm,
is interesting that, yeah, you've just spent 2 hours with us, right? But after the show, it's just as important to diffuse yourself from the show. And I know one of the things I do as an actor is use music to help myself diffuse. After having just done a performance, I have a list of songs that when I get home, and I listen in the car as well, safely. And there is just those songs that help me change my headspace, help change my mood.
mhm.
And I'm such a proponent of a one woman dance party. Find that song, press play, put those headphones in, turn it up loud if you need to, and dance it out and come back to who you are. It helps me to come back to me and reminding myself,
Yeah,
I'm Mara.
exactly. Music is super transitional, like, it can take you from one mood to another, and I think it's so important to get to, like you were saying, you have a list of songs, you have a playlist basically that gets you to feeling just like you again. Oh, I love that. I love the dance party too.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's helping me shed that layer, all those layers I've
Mhm.
been carrying throughout the show, to come back to, centered me.
Yeah.
But, Mylene, I know that as an actor, and especially trying to stay grounded mentally and physically, throughout a rehearsal and performance process, um, sometimes shows like Bonesetter's Daughter tackles heavy themes, and there's a lot of difficult subject matter. Sometimes my self-care routines and rituals are not quite enough, and I'm finding myself needing additional support. What else could or if I'm someone who's maybe out there having just seen our show, what if they're still feeling a lot of emotions? What's something that they can do?
Yeah. If after watching Bonesetter's Daughter with all those heavy themes, I think it really is important to understand when you might need or want to process more.
Mhm.
So, that processing that you do with the family and the friends that you went to the show with, that's awesome. That's almost like the little start, right? Um, but sometimes we notice that, like, talking about these things, witnessing, some of the heavy stuff that we just saw, it can open up places in our own bodies that is holding trauma for us. And if we're kind of going through the week still feeling a little sad, still feeling a little anxious, that might be your cue to then reach out to someone around you, like your mom, maybe your own precious auntie,
Mm.
um, your best friend that you trust, or maybe even a therapist or another trusted mental health professional. I think it's really good to understand that I don't have to carry this all by myself. It really is something that I can find support with, and it's out there for you guys if you ever need to, express it a little bit more, feel it a little bit more to heal from it too.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you. And the characters in this show find power in sharing their story.
Hmm.
And what you've just said is so important, that if you're finding yourself needing to share, find those around you. You are not alone. That's powerful. That's so powerful. So, Mylene, I'm so grateful to have connected with you, that the uh, connections we have, I mean, strong women, like this is an AAPI centric story.
Mhm.
I'm I'm just so glad we have so much in common. I've learned a lot from you, and the tips that we've gone over today. I think everyone should have access to that when they come to the theater. It doesn't have to
Oh,
be just
absolutely.
our show. Now, where can folks connect with you if they want to keep in touch and learn more about this incredible work you're doing?
Yeah, so maybe just to kind of piggyback off of that, I just want to thank you so much too, Mara,
Oh,
for making all of this happen. I'm so glad that we connected the weird way that we did, but that we were able to share our passion for theater and for mental well-being, especially on this kind of a platform for everybody. So um, if you are looking for me, if you want to find out more about mental health and your own well-being, you can find me on Instagram. I'm at therapy_nuggets, or on Facebook as Mylene Eduvala LCSW. So you can find a lot of, like, I'll have little links there where you can connect with me or learn more about mental health.
yes, absolutely. Thank you for that. And folks, I'm on Facebook under Mara Palma, and on Instagram as well at Mara Palma _CO. And of course, if you're in the greater Seattle area, come on by, come see me in the Bonesetter's Daughter. We
Yeah,
are in performances until July 3rd. And a huge shout out to Book It for hosting us today and letting us share our expertise on such an important topic around theater and mental health and well-being. Um, I love the mission of Book It. How awesome is it that they're sharing the power of books to stage, to these connections that we're making?
love it.
And you can find out more about Book It Repertory Theater by heading to bookit.org. That's book-it.org. Thank you, Mylene. Until next
Thank you,
time.
Mara. Yeah, definitely next time. Break a leg, okay?
Thank you. Bye.